Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of Allison's Corner. If you're new here, I am your host, Allison. And this is my little corner of the internet where we talk about life, growth, healing, and just all around figuring it out. And if you've been here for a while, then first of all, thank you. You've been riding with me through the ups and the downs, the really deep reflections, the what am I even doing with my life moments. And I'm going to admit something that this episode is definitely one of those because today I'm giving you some real life updates. We're talking about how I am feeling about my job before all of this happened, the day I got laid off. Yes, via a Teams meeting, and how I've been navigating all the uncertainty since then, but more importantly, how I'm learning to just move forward, especially creatively and spiritually. So, yeah, we're gonna keep it real. So, go ahead, grab your coffee, grab your tea, maybe even a little bit of wine, whatever it is you have on hand, and let's get into it. So, let me start with some honesty. For a couple of months before the layoff, I just knew something in me was changing. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but I started waking up with this sense of just heaviness. I just wasn't really liking my job or where I was in life. I'd sit at my desk, I'd open up my laptop, and literally I would just stare at the screen like this just cannot be my life. And the crazy part is, while I didn't really like my job, I didn't hate it. You know, I was good at what I did. I really liked my team. Overall, the company, it had its flaws, but it was pretty fine. But I don't know, fine just started to feel like a bit of a cage. And every day I felt like I was playing this character, like I was a version of myself who always had to have it together, always had to hit her deadlines, always was smiling in meetings, even when I really wanted to scream. And then there was this little whisper. It was really quiet at first, but it was persistent. And I just kept on hearing over and over again, you're meant for more. Like, this just is not for you. And I'll admit it, I ignored it at first. I buried it under my to do list and my paycheck and performance reviews. But I just kept on hearing that voice. It kept on coming back. And you know that feeling when you're doing everything right, but deep down, you know it's not right for you? That was me to a T. I would literally be in meetings, right? And I would daydream about all the creative projects I could be doing. I would think about new podcast ideas, new topics, even branding that would be so cool to implement. And I'd be in the middle of like an email chain talking about hitting our targets and all this other stuff. And I just think, what if I just quit and really went all in on my creative life? But of course, fear got the best of me. It started to kick in. And I tell myself, like, girl, be for real. You need stability. You need a plan. You can't just throw everything away. So I stayed, even though I felt like I was one foot in and one foot out. Then came the day that changed everything. It was a random Monday, one of those mornings where nothing really felt off. I had my coffee, checked emails, all of that. And then I got a little ping that said, "You've been invited to a meeting." on Microsoft Teams. There was really no context, no agenda. I only saw my director's name and my name. So I was like, okay, maybe this is just something upper management is doing. I don't know. I joined the meeting, and both my director and an HR representative had their cameras on, which already was kind of a red flag because at my company, we never turn our cameras on. We'll just speak, but cameras remained off. And y'all, they looked so serious. And literally in that split second, I knew something was up. And so my director, he said, Allison, thank you for joining. I'm just going to go ahead and get straight into it. And he just started saying words like restructuring and business changes and position eliminated. And I was like, okay, this feels a bit surreal because, I've heard stories about people who have been laid off before, but I was like, I can't believe it's really happening to me. So I'm sitting there at my computer watching them on the screen tell me that my entire sense of stability was gone. And it was strange. You would think that I would have cried right away, but I didn't. I was just like, oh, okay. Um, After the call, I went downstairs into my kitchen. I called one of my work besties and told her the news, and she was just as shocked. And then after getting off the phone with her, I said, "Okay, God, I guess we're doing this." Because y'all, I really wasn't hurt. I wasn't even upset. I actually felt very relieved, like my soul knew, my spirit knew that it was the end, but it was also the beginning of something else. And I had wanted to quit for a very long time. I wanted to quit from the beginning of this year. But the way this current economy is, I just couldn't up and leave without a plan. But when you lose your job, it's not just about losing your income, right? You're also losing your sense of rhythm. You're losing your identity. You're losing, you know, just this whole mental load of what is it that I'm doing? And now I'm trying to figure out what my next steps are. Thankfully, I did have 2 weeks from the time that I was told about being laid off until my last day. So I'm really thankful for that because I was able to say bye to some of my favorite coworkers and just hand off any last minute things to my replacements. And I felt happy to be leaving. It felt right. But even though I was so happy, it also was a bit disorienting because in the span of those 2 weeks, I'd go from feeling grateful for, having this break to spiraling into, oh my gosh, what now? What if I never find anything better? What if, I'm being punished? And the mental gymnastics that has taken place has been very real. But time and time again, I've just been slowing down and breathing. And I'm giving myself permission to just be in this moment. I've been praying a lot, I've been meditating a lot, and I've been talking to some friends who, have been in the same position. And as time has gone on, I've realized that what I've been feeling has been an ending was really an invitation, and this invitation has allowed me to just really trust my instincts creatively again. So, of course, I was shocked by everything, but once the initial shock had kind of faded, something in me just started to wake up again. And it was that same whisper, y'all, that had been tugging at me before. And it came back, but this time it was just so much louder. And I started thinking about Allison's Corner again and how this podcast just started as an idea, a safe space to talk about life and growth, and how maybe this layoff was just my chance to pour into it fully. I've started to map out episodes, I'm jotting down ideas here and there. And then I started revisiting Allison and Friends book club. And I thought, what if I use this season to build community again through reading, reflection, and just having those honest conversations with my book club? And of course, my Substack came back into focus. This idea of just writing and blending storytelling in my own way has become more and more appealing. Because, truth be told, it's funny how creativity shows up right when you think you've lost it all. Because when I was working, I didn't really have the energy to dream like this. I had the ideas, I was putting things out, as you all know, but I had to really take a step back. And now the ideas are just flowing. I'll be sitting on my bed and I'll be like in mid sip of coffee, and suddenly I think of a tagline or a podcast segment or a way to just bring everything together. And for me, for the first time in a really long time, it feels exciting. I haven't felt excited in such a long time. I will admit it is very scary, yes, but I have felt so excited because I'm realizing that this layoff, it didn't break me, but it's helping to just redirect me, and it's pushing me out of a comfort zone. I would have never left on my own. Now, one thing that I've learned in this season is that faith doesn't always look pretty. Sometimes faith looks like crying while sending out job applications. Sometimes it looks like starting a podcast episode when I'm not sure if anyone will even listen. And sometimes it just looks like getting out of bed and saying, we're just going to do our best today. And I've learned that rest is not regression. Just because I'm not grinding every day, it doesn't mean that I'm lost. It just means I'm recovering. And I've learned that identity isn't tied to my job title. I think corporate America does a really good job in just having us turn the hamster wheel, and in taking the step back, I'm realizing how burnt out I have been from corporate America. And I'm really assessing what my values are and if I want to continue with corporate America and climbing the corporate ladder, or if I just want to do my own thing. Because at the end of the day, I'm still me. I'm creative, I'm compassionate, I am driven. And that exists whether I'm on a payroll or not. And maybe the most powerful lesson that I've learned is that you can't receive what's next if you're still clinging to what's gone. And I've had to release the version of me who thought stability only came from a paycheck. And now I'm learning that stability comes from peace, from trusting that if I'm aligned and I'm in tune with God and I'm walking in the way that I need to, provision will always follow. So, I know y'all are asking, oh my gosh, Allison, what is next, girl? I don't know. I'm still figuring it out. I have been applying to a few new roles here and there. I'm kind of exploring the idea of doing freelance work. And at the same time, I'm building structure as it relates to my creative projects. And I'm treating Allison's Corner and Allison is friends like they are real brands because they are. So I am creating content plans, I'm scheduling, even looking at some sponsorship opportunities, which is really, really exciting. But more than anything, I'm just choosing to trust my pace at this time. I'm not rushing anything, I'm not forcing anything, I am just flowing. Because when I look back, everything that has ever worked out in my life happened when I just stopped trying to control the timing. So maybe this season isn't about finding the next thing. Maybe it's just about me moving forward. So, if you are listening right now and you've been laid off, or you're feeling stuck, or you're like me and you're questioning what in the world is next, I just want to tell you this, that you are not behind, you are not failing, you are not broken, but you are being rerouted. And in this crazy in between season, it might feel like chaos, trust me. I I understand, but sometimes that is just creation in disguise. You are being stripped of what's no longer aligning so that you can make space for what is real. So just breathe, take your time, let it unfold, because one day soon you will look back and realize this is the moment when everything just started to align. Whew, so that was a lot, but I needed to share it. And if you're still here, thank you. Truly, thank you so much. Thank you for being part of this community, for listening, for supporting, and just allowing me to show up as I am, even in the messy, uncertain seasons. Thank y'all so much. I do not know exactly where this journey is leading, but I do know one thing for sure, that I am walking in faith, in creativity, and in purpose. And if you are someone who is doing the same, then guess what, girl? You are right on time. And if today's episode resonated with you, share it with someone who really might need to hear it. Of course, follow Allison's Corner, join the Allison and Friends book club and stay connected, because we're just getting started over here. Until next time, I want to leave y'all with a quote from Nelson Mandela, and it says, "The greatest glory in living lies not in never falling, but in rising every time we fall." As always, God bless. Have an amazing day. And thank you for listening to Allison's Corner.